This is Robert Kraft, and I'm your host on SNN.Network. And joining me today is Cameron Watt. He is the president and CEO of Intouch Insight. It's a publicly traded company. I got two symbols for you: INX on the TSX Venture and INXSF on the OTCQB. Cameron, thank you for joining me today. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing?
You know, it's just it's good to see. It's been about a month and a half or 2 months since our event. So look, it's good to catch up.
Yeah, I've even left the house 2 or 3 times during that time period. So
Well, that's a huge win right there. I hope it was for exercise or something leisurely.
I think these days it's mostly to buy food, but it's all good.
I was gonna say I hope it wasn't to just take out trash either.
Yeah. I also have to do that though. That's the other side of it.
Right. Well, that's all part of it. You know what? It's almost like getting back to normal. But anyways, let's dig right in. So, Intouch Insight. This is our first time actually doing an interview together. You were on a panel with Maj at our event back in August. So, real quick, for those who don't know the story yet, let's get a quick overview and history of the company.
Sure. So, Intouch Insight was actually founded in 1992. And it was doing customer satisfaction surveys at the time. And for those of you that are, old enough to know this, the internet wasn't real prevalent in 1992. So they actually did it using kiosks. I know it's news to you, Robert, but the internet wasn't like it is today. They used kiosks, and the kiosks would get sent around location, and customers would fill them in the lobbies. And so, and then in 2002, the company actually went public. And then in 2005, it actually purchased its first sort of services company, which did data capture like mystery shopping and audits in the field. And the company was purchased actually dates back to 1978. So the company has been doing sort of customer experience measurement and customer experience monitoring for over 40 years in terms of its overall legacy. When I took over, which was the fall of 2013, I made the decision that we wanted to go beyond just being in the sort of the services side of the business, and we wanted to get into software. And so since then, we have been somewhat quietly and somewhat vocally, depending on what year, I've been building SaaS products through bootstrapping from the services business effectively. We did a raise for $3.5 million in the fall of 2017 to accelerate some of that activity. But outside of that raise, the company hasn't raised a dollar since it went public in 2002. And the result of that is a very tight liquidity situation in terms of we have 22.6 million shares outstanding is all that's outstanding. There's no overhang on that. And we have about a third of the company is owned by insiders. So it's a nice cap structure. And effectively, we do customer experience management and customer experience monitoring and analytics, and we do it using services and software.
This fun fact about me, as this is my fault. Fun fact about me. I when I was in business school, we had to do a marketing plan for a consumer journey company. They were based overseas, and it was a pretty interesting experience learning about the whole space. I mean, can you update our audience a little bit about how this industry has really changed over the years and why it's so important to understand customer touch points throughout their life cycle?
Yeah, it's funny. If you go back far enough, understanding what your customers wanted was usually asking your friends to come to your restaurant, to your store, and tell you what they thought, right? And then that became officially a process many years ago, many decades ago. And then the internet really started to blow open the alternatives. And at one point around the turn of the century, really, people in the industry around customer experience were thinking along the lines of, why would you even bother doing something like mystery shopping or kind of operational audits? Because, you should listen to your real customers, right? And that became the customer satisfaction survey and things you could do on the internet. And that had a little bit of a trend for a while. And then people realized that the pendulum had swung too far and that you're measuring apples, which was great, but you were measuring oranges before, and now you no longer knew anything about your oranges. And so what the trend you're seeing now is a much more combined situation where people understand they need to have, I call them three legs of a stool. You need to have feedback absolutely from your, quote unquote, real customers, people having real experiences. But you also need to understand whether your teams are doing the things you ask them to do, around both customer experience and other more mundane operating procedures. And then you need to be able to marry that together to find out, are your operating standards in line with what your customers are even looking for? And you need a lot of data to do that. That trend's been going on for a while. Probably the most recent trend now is that people got almost too much information. With all of the available software and all the available analytics, and all the available tracking, we started tracking so much information about so many people that it became analysis paralysis and information overload. We talk about big data, right? Well, big data just means more columns and rows on a spreadsheet, right? It doesn't unfortunately help you solve a business problem all the time. And so, the trend now is really more towards actionable information, right? How do you take all of this, ridiculous amount of information and turn it into something that I can actually go and do? And it tells me what to go and do. And it gives me a highlight reel that says, if you fix this, you'd probably get a better result in terms of customer experience. You'd probably get a higher basket size. You'd get more repeat purchases. Coming up with those, those actionable items is kind of where the industry has been focused. Of course, there's also another side of technology in the industry where, we all see it, but it's not what we do. But it's, I know that if you Google on your phone for sandals, new shoes, that tomorrow on your computer you're going to be served ads from shoe stores, So, but I'm not talking about that. Yeah, and I'm not talking about that technology side. We actually don't get involved in that side of it, on the marketing side of it. We get involved in the operational delivery of those services. And the trend there now is really taking it towards action and away from just information, which has just ballooned over the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah, that phrase that you just said really stuck out to me, analysis paralysis. I can't tell you how many times, when you're just choosing whatever you want to go and do or buy, it's just, you're like, oh, there's just information overload. And I can imagine as an operator, it's even more overwhelming. So this is actually, what you were saying is a perfect segue into what makes Intouch Insight unique and different. So can you provide our audience with a description of what makes you guys unique and different compared to your peers out there?
Yeah, if you look at what we do, we have the services businesses, which are kind of legacy, and then we have the new software we've built, we're starting to sell now. And if you take a look at both of those as separate situations for a moment, you'll find that there's lots of competitors out in that services space, tons of them. It's a very fragmented market, mostly smaller competitors. There's also some really big competitors on the software side, right? There's competitors in both those areas. But there's very few people who do both. And there is almost no one who does both really, really well. Okay. And so what we have done is we have focused on location-based industries, because that's what our history was with the services side. That's where we're really good. And what I mean by that is a business that has a lot of locations across a lot of geography, but needs some kind of consistency and control. For example, you got to think retail, you got to think food service and hospitality, you got to think about gas and convenience, and you've got to think about, grocery and pharmacy, right? I mean, and there's tons of these businesses, and yes, they're still out there. I mean, they're struggling this year for sure, and we're struggling, from a top line standpoint, we're struggling with them, and we'll recover with them, frankly. But that is where we are really, really strong. And so we actually built all of our software with that industry in mind, not with a giant call center in India in mind, but with people who are trying to control 1,000 or 2,000 locations and have to have them all the same. And so because we have this huge history, with those industries and 40 years of experience and Fortune 500 customers all over in all those industries, we have an advantage that we can now go and say, hey, all those services you need, we do that. And by the way, we have a leadership position in North America to do that from. And you want all this other software because it's really important too to have all this data. yeah, we do that too. And you can get it all from us. And it can all come into one thing, without any additional integrations and other machinations on the data. And so that's the one advantage we have, is that we focused where we're really good and where we have a pedigree and credibility. And the second thing is that we've actually built our software, again, because of the industries we have in mind. We have a patent pending action campaigns module. And that action campaigns module, I talked about trend towards action. That's people are doing that. But we've gone a step farther. And we've actually put a module into our software that allows someone to not only figure out, from the analysis saying, oh, I should do X, but actually launch forms, checklists, actions for their teams to perform. And the software will track whether those teams did those things, right? And once they know whether or not they did those things, it will then feed that back and tell you whether or not you got a return on all that activity. Did it improve the thing you were trying to improve? Was it worth the effort and the activity? It'll also, by the way, tell you who didn't do it, right? Especially in franchise organizations, people who didn't do it, if you can show them people who did do it are getting better financial results, you're going to get your franchisees on side, right? And so that focus, that knowledge, that combination of software and services, as well as our really strong understanding of needing to actually improve every individual location one at a time, is sort of what gives us a bit of an edge in where we're selling and what we're selling to.
And what's your background? I mean, how'd you come into all this?
Well, my background's a little bit eclectic, Robert. I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My family, when I was growing up, we were a Century 21 franchisee with a very large office. We were a regional franchisee for chain of transmission shops. We started a pizza restaurant and then became a chain. At our peak, we had about 50 franchisees with a pizza chain. And there's a number of other smaller businesses. So, when I talk about these industries that we serve, they're literally in my blood in terms of understanding them. I then went and got a couple of degrees, including an MBA from Ivy. And then, I decided at that point I would go and get the jobs like everybody's supposed to get. And I went and I worked for some of the largest companies in the country, or in the world for that matter. I worked for Pizza Hut, I worked for Frito-Lay, I worked for Mars, Unilever, and I ran pretty significant business units for all those companies. And but at some point, I think I decided I had enough of corporate politics, and I checked out of that world. And then Intouch became a natural fit for me. Because I was able to, use my entrepreneurial bent and desires, but I was also able to engage my knowledge of the industries that Intouch sells to, while at the same time understanding how to navigate through the Fortune 500 companies that are the customers of the business. So it kind of a bit of an eclectic way to get here, but it kind of fit.
And there's no one right way to get to running your own public company or to any position that we're in right now, right? So it's all a collection of everything that helps you get where you are today. So and it all makes sense at some point, right?
Yep, stuff happens, and and hopefully it's for the best, right?
That's right. All right. So then, from what you can tell us, what would you say are some of the company's value catalysts now for the rest of this year going into 2021?
Well, I tell you, in March 15th, this just would have been an easier question to answer. But I think that the value,
say the least, that is to say the least.
but I think ultimately the catalysts haven't really changed for us. It's always been about sales growth, sustained sales growth, as well as, for us, we have that, which is a lot of companies, but we have that subset as well of that SaaS-based business growth that from under the covers, what we, with the resources we've been putting into our software company. The challenge, of course, is that we're also, in my opinion, I'll say, I think we've been historically undervalued. If you look at all of our trading multiples, I think that, you could make an argument there. So for us, another catalyst besides revenue growth could be as simple as more eyeballs on the story, more investors understanding what a great deal there is out there and where we're going. And that's why I'm talking to you, I guess. But when you look at the stock before the pandemic hit, we were at 75 cents and increasing with lots of room to go up. And it was because we'd come off a strong year, which we hadn't even announced how strong it was yet. We also had pipeline, by the way, for this year between acquisition and organic to be just as strong on a growth story for 2020 as we were in 2019. And so, there was lots of room as results came out during the year for that stock to just keep moving and to get more eyeballs on that story. Unfortunately, COVID hit us and hit us hard. I talked with the industries we serve. We all know they're hit hard. And, our Q2, which we've already sent out, you can see a very hard hit on the top line. But I'm very proud to say that we did not get hit as hard on the financials in general. We put a lot of cost controls in place, a lot of prudent management in place, and financially we're still strong. We were even strong in the worst quarter we're probably ever going to have. We came out of it strong. And so the business is strong. We're expanding as the economy reopens. Unfortunately, it's just not reopening as fast as everybody would like to see the economy reopen. That's a long way to say I still think that sales growth is going to be a catalyst. I think our SaaS business, as it grows, is going to be a catalyst. And frankly, I still think people understanding that regardless of any of all that, we're just simply undervalued is going to be a catalyst as that news gets out there. And so I think those are the things that are going to probably drive our value proposition as we look towards the next, 3, 6, 9, 12 months.
Very good. And where can our audience go and find everything they need to know about Intouch Insight?
Well, I always tell people the first place to look, and you can go from there, is the website, right? IntouchInsight.com, tells you everything you need to know about the company from a website and standpoint. I will say that, we're currently doing a bunch of upgrades to that. We're going to be doing some new cool things over the next few months on the website, but it's there today. I also say that, as you said at the opening, lots of information at TSXV, trading as INX, and on the OTCQB, trading as INXSF.
Well, Cameron, thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it. Good luck, stay safe, and I look forward to our next update.
Thanks, Robert. Take care.
Take care.